Hey guys, we're back again with another one of Hasegawa's 32nd scale aircraft. This week we'll be looking at their F6F-3 and 5 kit. Let's open her on up and take a look. So, starting off right away, kit does come with separated flaps. One issue I did immediately notice was some very severe ejector pin marks here on the upper part of the flap. So that is something that's going to take some cleaning up. Beyond that, they do their job in a pinch. Honestly, though, depending on if you want to have them up or down, will dictate some of how you choose to use them. Continuing on, got our clear parts, including two different styles of windscreens, one for the Dash 3 and one for the later Dash 5. The back panel windows, again, this is on the Dash 5, and our canopy and gun sight. Excuse me. Continuing on, now you can see just in terms of size how large this will be once you get her built up with these three wing sections. I'll say our main lower wing consisting of a single mold piece. Again, using my hand for reference, that was quite large. In terms of surface detail, Hasegawa has a mix of recessed and raised detailing. Most of the riveting is raised. Overall, it's passable, given this kit's from the 80s and 90s. Can't complain too much, especially in comparison to more modern techniques for doing model kits. So it is passable. In terms of landing gear wheel detail, it's, again, passable. Obviously, some additional wiring could be added, but for out of the box, it's not bad. Much like the P-51 kit we looked at previously, the gun bays are open and accessible, and you can close them up with a included panel piece. Moving on, next sprue gives us much of the engine detailing and the cockpit. To look at the individual cylinder heads for the engine, there is some visible seam lines around the parts, so that will take some cleaning up, and given that there is also the recessed detailing, it will be quite difficult. So that's a bit of a minus there, but as far as the rest of the engine goes, it's quite good. A lot of the small intricate detailing. Now, obviously, a lot of the piping does have some flashing on this particular copy, so something to be aware of. Beyond that, all of the fine detailing, different rocker arms, is quite good. As I mentioned before, we've got our gun bays, which are adequately detailed. Could be better, but it's not terrible. So obviously that does give you a bit of an option. And now one area I do find a little disappointing is the detailing here in the cockpit. It's pretty basic, and really, in comparison to newer offerings, could definitely stand to have a detailing set added to it. So that is one area. If you do get this kit, I would say it might be worth it to look at getting like Edwards Photo Etch cockpit set. Beyond that, the rest of the cockpit is pretty Spartan, consisting mainly just of the cockpit floor, front and back wall, seat, and rudder pedals. So obviously it's not too detailed, but granted, a lot of that is going to be debatable as far as being seen once you close everything up. Moving on, we got some additional cockpit detailing. The 5-inch rockets that the kit comes with. Our main gear, again, pretty Spartan on detail, but they work, as well as our 2 halves for the horizontal control surfaces. Optional coverings for the wheels as well are included. Now, this particular piece popped off of one of the early sprues, but here we have our cowling. They did cut out a couple of the cowling flaps, so you can position them. But again, this does give you a bit of a sense of just how large this kit will be once built up. Last sprue gives us our 2 fuselage halves. Again, they do have much the same detailing as the wings. So overall, a mix of recessed and raised detail. But they will do the trick. Again, our very large 3-bladed prop. Main wheels, drop tanks. The inner detail here on the fuselage and the cockpit area is non-existent, so it is something to be aware of. Additionally, the back windows that you have to go with for the Dash 5 version are molded in, so you'll have to cut that out if you want to build a Dash 5. So something to be aware of, because that could be a little tricky. So let's move on now to the decal sheet once we get all this back in. So decal sheet includes options for 3 different planes, 2 U.S. planes, and a Royal Navy plane. On this sheet, despite the age, you still have very clear whites and otherwise good color registration. So thankfully, at least on mine, obviously, depending on the exact vintage of the kit you get, you may have to replace the decals. So moving on to the instruction sheet. They do a fairly adequate job of picking out what parts you need to use for which version, as you can see here with numbering for cutting out the windows. Beyond that, assembly is pretty basic. There's not a whole terrible lot to the assembly on this kit, with the most complex section being the engine buildup, just mainly due to the numerous parts involved. So definitely one I would say is worth considering for that fact alone as a potential, step up point from potentially other subject matter and or smaller aircraft kits. Now, as I said before, kit comes with 3 different marking options, 2 U.S. planes and 1 Royal Navy. First one being for a Dash 3, second one Dash 5, and the Royal Navy also as a Dash 5. Now, interestingly, on the diagrams, they honestly looks like they just used the same stencil outline and colored them in, because as you can see on Dash 3, they have the window, even though it's not supposed to have it. And here on the Dash 5s, they have the Dash 3 windscreen visible. So that is something to be aware of and pay attention to. Again, the Dash 5 has this little center area missing. It just comes to a single bar. And the Dash 3 does not have the back window. So overall, as I said, it's a decent kit. It's not the best kit, but it's far from being the worst kit. To the best of my knowledge, the only other Hellcat in 32nd scale is from Trumpeter, and for the most part, everything I've heard about it says it has terrible, terrible issues. So that is something to be aware of. Obviously, price on this can be sort of mid-range, mostly due to just it being a fairly large kit. I picked this up for about $45. I've seen HLJ put it on sale a couple times for around $30 after conversion. So it is one you can sometimes find on the cheap. But at the same time, it's even if you have to pay the full market price, I would say it's worth it. As I said, definitely one to look at as a potential step-up point, as it's not overly complicated, but still has a decent amount of detail. You just have to pay attention to which version you're going to be building. So that was a look at Hasegawa's 1/32 scale F6F-3 and 5 kit. A good middle ground kit that would serve as a good jump up point from potential other subjects and or smaller scales. So until next time.